Maryland beats Michigan State to move to 4-0.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you for making us part of your days. And these days, new potential hires can feel like high-stakes wagers for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs help find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. The Terps are proving themselves after a big win against Michigan State Spartans in East Lansing. The Terps are 4-0, and it wasn't a close game, and we didn't play our 100% best game, but it was a game that we didn't worry about losing. And another win stacked up on another win, a Big Ten opponent, our first Big Ten game, and the Terps look good. And we're 4-0 for the second time in the last 3 years. The last time was in 2021. So you see what Coach Loxley is doing. We're off the fast starts, and we're winning games that we're supposed to win games. And the Terps are absolutely proving themselves as a borderline top 25 team. We are receiving votes in the top 25. Last week, we received 4 votes. This week, we missed out on the top 25 again, but we are right there. I looked at it this morning, and currently the Maryland Terrapins are the 31st ranked team right now. And we went from 4 votes last week to now we're receiving 20 votes. So people were kind of recognizing last week, but now 20 votes is a lot of votes. People are definitely looking out for us. It's definitely flipping a switch. And the Maryland Terrapins are just behind 2 interesting teams in UCLA and Colorado. Colorado, the team that just got rocked. And Oregon. We are right behind Colorado and UCLA. 2 good teams. So we're in a good spot moving into next week against Indiana. And the Terps are absolutely proving themselves to the voters, to themselves. And we beat Michigan State handily. We beat Michigan State without a sweat. There was never a point in the game where I was like, we're not going to win this game, or I'm unsure about them. We never went down in the game. We came out fast. We went up 14-0 instead of going down 14-0. We proved ourselves in the Big Ten because I was unsure about this game. I wasn't going to call it a trap game. I knew we were going to come out fast because it was our first Big Ten game. I knew the guys were going to be excited. We're 3-0. We're borderline top 25. But I was still concerned about the Terps overall. But still a really good start for the Maryland Terrapins. And like I said, it never scared me. It was never like the Virginia game, the Charlotte game. I got a little bit scared. I'm not going to lie. And Michigan State is better than those 2 teams. But I got a little bit scared when we played those 2 games. Of Michigan State, I sat back and watched the game handily. Obviously, there's stuff that I was like, dang, why are we doing that? Dang, why is that happening? Dang, it's a lead interception. Whatever, whatnot. That happens in every football game. That's just how the game goes. But overall, I was never like shaking, like down 14-0 in the second quarter, like, can we come back? Can the defense not give up a big play? That was never in doubt. So I think the Terps proved themselves in that way, showing that we can beat Michigan State without sweating and beating a team that the Terps are supposed to beat. And the Terps are coming. Let me read this stat. Everyone was talking about it after the game. It was the first time we beat Michigan State at their place in East Lansing since 1950. And I went back and looked at the score of that game. It was 7-34 in a similar kind of fashion game. I don't know exactly how it went, but in terms of the score, it was a similar fashion game to the 9-31 game that we just played. But that was the last time Maryland beat Michigan State. And obviously the program was in not beat Michigan State, beat Michigan State at Michigan State and East Lansing. Obviously, we did beat them last year, but still, obviously, the program was in a different state. But the Terps are coming. They're proving themselves. They're doing things they haven't done in 50 years. We haven't won in Michigan State in over 50 years. We're doing different things. We're setting different records. We're setting a new standard of the Maryland Terrapins. Winning games we're supposed to be winning Big Ten games. I think we have a chance to have a winning record in the Big Ten this year. Obviously, it's not going to be easy, but starting off 1-0 against a Michigan State, a very solid Michigan State Spartan teams, it's a really good start. And Maryland has won 2 of the last meetings against Michigan State. Obviously, we beat them last year. It was a little bit of a different situation. They had a different quarterback. They didn't have Noah Kim. They had Peyton Thorne, who's now the quarterback at Auburn. But we beat them pretty good. I want to say by 14 last year, if my memory serves me right. But let me read this stat. Michigan State has beat Maryland 5 of its last 7 times. So we have won 2 years in a row. We have beaten them. But they've won 5 of the last 7. So there's a change in the program. If you don't see the change, listen to it in the statistics that I'm reading to you. There's clearly a change that Coach Loxley is bringing, and there's a new standard that we have. And I think it's the perfect time for this change as a program and taking a new step. Before I talked about it, how we're the premier program in the DMV, and now I think we're a middle of the pack, a higher middle of the pack team in the Big Ten. We're not with the big dogs yet. We're not with the Penn States. We're not with the Ohio States. We're not with the Michigans. I'm not saying that, but now I think we can establish ourselves as that 4, 5, 6 ranked team, 4 through 6 ranked team in the Big Ten, which is a good spot to be in. And I think it's a perfect time for this change as a program and to prove ourselves as that type of program, because right before realignment, because we know Washington is coming in. You see what they're doing this year? They're probably going to be worse next year without Penix, but they're still going to be a really good team. Oregon, you saw what they did against Colorado. So it's important to establish ourselves before those teams come in as one of the better teams in the upper echelon of the Big Ten, because once those teams come in, it's going to be hard to continue to win games. It's going to be hard to continue to stay in the middle-ish upper pack of the Big Ten. But beating Michigan State in the way that we did was a really big way. And I totally expect us to be, I think a lot of people will have us at number 4 in the Big Ten right now in the rankings, behind the Big 3. I saw Barstool Big Ten on Twitter, which obviously I'm not going to act like that's an accurate source or a good source at making a ranking, but they did have Maryland as the 4th ranked team in the Big Ten. I'll be interested to see what On 3 does, because before they had us below Rutgers, who just got blown out by Michigan. And so I'll be interested to see if they finally put us where we're supposed to be. And then Penn State just crushed Iowa. So I think right now we're considered the 4th best team in the Big Ten, which is the place to be, which is an awesome place. And we're seeing players perform at a high level on the road, proving themselves as individuals or proving ourselves as a team. I'm seeing guys like Ty Felton, Glendon Miller, Colby McDonald. I'm seeing the whole team proving themselves, and guys that we have recruited and brought up that have improved, like I talked about with Ty Felton. Every year his workload has increased. They're proving themselves. Younger guys are proving themselves. The older guys are proving themselves. The whole entire team is proving themselves. The offensive line, I thought, had a good game against the pass. They're kind of proving themselves. Against the run, that's another situation that we'll talk about later. But the offensive line is proving themselves in terms of the pass game, and great teams are able to win different ways. And I think that's what Maryland is proving they can do. It's the turnover game. It's the defense. It's Talia, a lot of passing yards. It's Roman Hemby, 160 yards against Charlotte. We're winning in different ways, which is extremely important to do in the Big Ten, because without that, you're not going to be able to win. But it's important to prove ourselves and win in different ways, because I'm not sure if the turnover margin is going to continue to stay up. We might not win the turnover margin against Ohio State. It's going to be important to, but it might not happen. It's not realistic to get 4 turnovers a game. It's just not. So to be able to win in different games, whether it's Roman Hemby, whether it's Talia's on, whether it's the defense carrying us one day. It's important that we are able to win in different ways because that will make us be able to continue to prove ourselves. But overall, the Maryland Terrapins are proving themselves as a top 5 team in the Big Ten. And I'm not going to say we have arrived, but the trajectory of the program, the first time beating Michigan State since 1950 at their place, the Maryland Terrapins are absolutely proving themselves in the Big Ten. Let's get to the offensive and defensive, and I have a special MVP for the game against the Michigan State Spartans. But first, this ad from LinkedIn. These days, new potential hires can feel like high-stakes wagers for your small business. That's why you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. A lot of people need jobs right now, and if you want to find someone amazing for your company, LinkedIn Jobs help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Let's get to my favorite segment of the week on a Monday, the MVPs. I love giving the MVPs of the game. It's one of my favorite segments that we do. And I got an extra MVP last week against Virginia. I had an extra special teams MVP. And then this week, because Braden Wissolowski returned a touchdown and got the momentum going, and this week I have an extra MVP. I'm just going to call it an overall MVP because what a game he had overall. Was it on the offensive or the defensive side of the ball? He did it on both, and it's Sean Greenlee, the fullback / linebacker, had a huge day for the Terps. Caught a touchdown pass on the first touchdown of the game. Talia on the goal line kind of faked it, and then Sean leaked out, wide open touchdown. First touchdown of the game. This isn't like we're blowing them out and we're up 35-0 and he scores a touchdown. It's the first touchdown of the game, and he proves himself as making an impact early on in the game, which was super cool to see Sean Greenlee do. And it was a nice Talia fake. It was a nice play called by Coach Loxley or Coach Gaddis. It was a nice overall design for Greenlee to get him a touchdown. And this is a big deal because he's a linebacker. This isn't a normal fullback, but I guess he plays fullback and linebacker for the Terps. But you got to remember, Greenlee is a guy that I watched a little video about him getting awarded a scholarship. This is a guy who was a former walk-on. And Coach Loxley talked about how this is a guy who loves the game of football. If you're a walk-on and you're not getting any money and you're going in there every single day and competing to make the team and lifting every day and doing all these different things, practice time, lift times, getting less sleep, and you're not getting full scholarship or any money for your time, you love the game of football, and that's what Sean Greenlee did, and that's why I love that he was able to score a touchdown for the Terps, and he was the first defensive player to score a touchdown for the Terps since 1996, and the third player in FBS to force a fumble. I almost forgot. He also forced a fumble in the game on the kickoff for the Terps at the end of the game. He forced a turnover. So he had a touchdown and a forced turnover. That rarely ever happens in the game of football. You're not going to have a guy that's forcing a turnover and scoring a touchdown. Maybe when J.J. Watt was playing tight end and playing defensive end for the Texans a while ago, there's a point he was doing that. Maybe Travis Hunter can do something like that for Colorado, but most guys just aren't going to have the opportunity to score a touchdown and force a fumble, but he was able to do that, and he was the third player in FBS since 2012 to force a fumble and catch an offensive touchdown. So first player since 2012. That doesn't really happen. It hasn't happened since 2012. So a 6 stat line there for Sean Greenlee, but I think he embodies what it means to be a Terp, and it's great to see the Maryland Terrapins. Sometimes I have problems with how we do the rotation. I think we rotate too many players in, but I love when I see a guy that was a former walk-on, has worked his way up, and gets a touchdown against Michigan State on the road in East Lansing in the first play of the game, an important play of the game to help us go up. So great job, Sean Greenlee. I think like I said, I think he embodies what it means to be a Terp, to work his way up, to get on scholarship, to be a guy that can play special teams, a guy that can play fullback, a guy that can do a bunch of things for us and just make an impact on the team. It's not going to be in the flashiest way, but make an impact on the team. I love to see a guy like Greenlee do that for the Maryland Terrapins. But let's get to the offensive MVP. It was kind of hard for me to pick because there wasn't just like a standout here. There wasn't one guy I looked at and said, oh, yeah, it's him. Like, it wasn't a Talia 400-yard day. It wasn't a Jase Jones 100-yard game. Jase Jones was actually really quiet. But at the end of the day, I went with Ty Felton because I have loved what Ty Felton has brought to the Maryland Terrapins this year and over the past couple of years. I think the Terp staff has developed him. I think if you look at his production between his freshman year to his sophomore year to now his junior year, it's exactly what you want. You want to see it's just an upper slope of continue to produce at a higher and higher and higher level, which I love to see from Ty Felton. Ty Felton was out of Virginia, who was a 3-star out of college, but like I said, we developed him. He had 309 yards last year, and as a freshman had like 50 yards. So you see he continues to get better and better. And the reason I gave him MVP because he had 70 receiving yards and led our team in receiving yards against Michigan State and had a couple of big catches for the Maryland Terrapins, a couple of game-changing type of catches. So he played really well. And I think next year he has a chance to be, I'm not going to say our best wide receiver, but maybe he has a chance to be our leading wide receiver. This year, he already has 165 yards for 11 receptions. So like I said, he had 309 yards last year with 23 receptions, and he has 165 yards this year with 11 receptions through only 4 games. So he's going to break his record from last year. He's already on track to do it. He's projected to break it by a lot. He's projected to he might get to like 700, 800 yards. We'll see. But he's consistently putting up 40-yard games. I don't need 70 yards out of Ty Felton. I don't expect him to do that. And he's averaging 15 yards per catch. So he's doing really well. He's doing a really good job. And I want to make this quick point about how I think he got overshadowed the whole offseason. I continued to say Octavian Smith and Ty Felton, look out for those two guys. Those two guys might be too good not to play. Octavian Smith is obviously a true sophomore, and Ty Felton, I still kind of consider him young, even though he's a junior, because he's always kind of been overshadowed by other guys. Last year, overshadowed by Rakeem, Demas, Jones, Copeland, all of them he was overshadowed. And then Caden Prather came in this year, and Tyrese Chambers came in this year, and he got overshadowed by those guys. People kind of kicked him to this curve and were like, oh, he's going to be 4th, 5th wide receiver on this team. But he's proving himself as a upper echelon, top 3 wide receiver on this team, and he's playing really well. And Talia likes throwing him the ball. And the thing that I think is really impressive is he got off to a slow start in the first game. He had a couple of drops against Towson, and I was like, I think he's getting open, and I think he can improve, which he showed to do when he leads our team in receiving yards. But it's great that he bounced back and is continuing to play well. But overall, the wide receiver room looks good. But I think he stepped up for Jase Jones, who didn't put up a stat, which was kind of crazy. Didn't put up a single catch. The Maryland Terrapins leader of receiving yards last year didn't put up a catch. So overall, I wanted to give the offensive MVP to Ty Felton, and I hope he continues to do great things for the Terps. Let's get to the defensive MVP. This one was a little bit harder. There's a couple of different choices I thought I could go with, but at the end of the day, I went with Glendon Miller, who is from Florida. I love how Glendon Miller has played the last 2 weeks. He's a safety slot kind of hybrid, and he's playing really well. I think he's had a couple of really good games. Last week, he stepped in for Bo Braid, had a good game, had a really good play against Virginia on a tackle for loss. So he's overall playing really well, and he's playing like I expected Glendon Miller. He's exceeded our expectations, but let's get into why he won the MVP against Michigan State. He had a nice pick, and if you look at the thumbnail for this video, it's Glendon Miller making the pick, but he had a nice acrobatic pick against Noah Kim on the sideline. Use that 6'4" frame that he's got, 6'3", 6'4". He's been listed at multiple things at different websites, so I'll give him the benefit of doubt at 6'4". And I think that range and that length has really helped him in terms of cover skills, in terms of getting that interception on the sideline. It was acrobatic. It was a really nice pick. But I thought maybe I could go with Bo Braid on the defensive MVP because he had a pick on one of the first plays of the game. But I ended up going with Miller because I love what he's done. And I've already given Bo Braid a ton of props. But I think Glendon Miller is an X factor for the Maryland defense overall. 8 tackles on the year with an interception, and has been a pleasant surprise for me. And like I said, he's kind of an X factor. And I also thought maybe I could go with Wheatland, who had a sack, who is playing well again. And then Donald Brown also getting another fumble. Forced fumble, Donald Brown. I don't know how he's doing it. Every game he's forcing a turnover. I thought I could go with either one of those guys. So there's plenty of guys that play well against on the defense, only allowed 9 points. But like I said, the turnover margin is a little bit sketched to just keep up winning by like 3 in the turnover margin every week. So we're overall just going to have to continue to improve and continue to get better. But Glendon Miller, your defensive MVP. Should Terps fans be concerned about the run game? I'll tell you after this message from Locked On and the Athletic Brewing Company. College football season is here, and this season, Locked On is kicking up your coverage with Locked On College Football Kickoff Live. Each Friday, Locked On go live from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel. College Football Kickoff Live will cover playoff implications, the conference rivalry games, and go in depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every day. Find Locked On College Football Kickoff Live every Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on any Locked On College YouTube channel. You won't want to miss it. Now time for your Game Changer of the Week, brought to you by the Athletic Brewing Company. Much like Talia Tunga Viola, Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. You don't have to worry about hangovers. I've talked to many people in the Locked On community, and they say they taste great. They're the fastest growing non-alcoholic brewery in the U.S., so get on board. You can find Athletic Brewing Co.'s non-alcoholic beers at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use Locked On to get 15% off your first online order. That's Locked On at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com near beer. Exclusion and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. I am absolutely concerned with the Maryland Terrapins run game. There's no other way to put it. It's 2 weeks in a row that it hasn't looked good, and the Terps could not run the ball at all against the Michigan State Spartans. As a team, we rushed for 31 carries for 139 yards with a 4.5 average. And you look at that number and you're like, okay, it wasn't a terrible day, like a pretty average day for the Maryland Terrapins run game. But that number is absolutely misleading. That includes Spangler, our kicker, who faked the punt and got 14 yards on a fake punt, and then Octavian Smith got a carry for 5 yards, and then Talia also had a big day on the ground with 5 carries for 37 yards. So you put all those in, and the number looks okay. Take those guys out because I want to look how just the running back did and just how the running back running game was, and it was horrible. There's no other way to put it. 84 yards with 24 carries with 3.5 average between Littleton, Hemby, and Colby McDonald. As a whole, the running back room could not win at all. And I know the Michigan defensive line, I've seen that's supposed to be their strength of their team. I'm not sure exactly it's been a huge strength for them, but it's supposed to be their strength. But backing up to the Virginia game, I'm not going to say Virginia's defensive line is awesome. We couldn't run the ball against them either. Average 3.8 yards per carry. So now 2 games in a row against, I'm not going to say elite defensive lines, okay defensive lines at best, but the next couple weeks and the teams that we're going to get into, even against Indiana, we're going to have to be able to run the ball, and I'm concerned that we're not going to be able to, and it's going to be all on Talia's shoulders because the defensive lines that we're going to continue to play, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, they got dudes up front. And if we cannot run the ball, I just don't know about how successful we're going to be, but I'm concerned about the Terps run game. 2 weeks in the row not playing well, and it's Roman Hemby 2 games in a row for him after the 160-yard game against Charlotte, the Virginia game, and this week against Michigan State have been horrible for Roman Hemby. I don't know. He looked a little bit slow coming out of his break. I don't know if he's injured. I don't know what's wrong with Roman Hemby, but something needs to be fixed. I don't know if it's an offensive line problem. I have to go back and really look at it. I'm sure it's some of both. I'm going to lean towards offensive line because that's usually kind of what it is when your running backs can't get anything going unless your running backs just missing holes after holes, which I don't think Roman Hemby's doing. But Hemby had 10 carries for 12 yards with a 1.2 average against Michigan State. 1.2 average for Roman Hemby, 12 yards on 10 carries. I'm concerned about the Terps run game. If that's the numbers we're putting up, and that's what we're doing at Michigan State, I don't want it all to be on Talia. I said it. I think we have to be able to run the ball. And then Antoine Littleton didn't get much better either. He had another game averaging other 4 yards per carry, but somehow to one bright spot of the run game, every single week we come back and talk about this because it continues and it continues to happen. But Colby McDonald, another great game for Colby McDonald, who averaged 7 yards, over 7 yards per carry, had 5 carries for 38 yards. And it's somehow every game continuing to put up really good games for Colby McDonald. He had the least amount of carries in the room by a pretty big margin, by at least 4 carries, and had the most yards at 38. There's no other way to kind of put it. He deserves more carries than Colby McDonald, but overall, I just don't know if it's realistic that Colby McDonald is going to continue to average like 7.8 yards per carry. It's not realistic. It's not going to happen. So Roman Hemby has to get going. Colby McDonald deserves more carries because he continues to do it. But I'm like I said about the turnovers, it's not going to stay consistent. So there's a couple things that I think the Terps are getting a little bit lucky in. They're getting lucky that the run game's not just horrible because Colby McDonald comes in and gives us good carries. And they're lucky that every week I don't want to say the turnover margin thing is lucky, but it's not going to stay consistent. I almost promise you there's going to be a game where we don't win the turnover margin. I can guarantee that. With all the games we have left on the season, I can almost guarantee the Terps will not win the turnover margin every week. But I am absolutely concerned about the Maryland Terrapins run game. I thought we were going to have more of a balanced attack. But it's not going that way. We're depending a lot on the right arm of Talia. Talia's great, but it helps a lot to have a run game, so I'm really concerned about that. But that's all we have for today. Today was an awesome episode. Thank you guys for listening. Please like and subscribe, and thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.